So many great questions have been piling in here as we get into the early spring season. So today I want to go over some of those questions that I've been receiving, try to answer some of those, and also give you an update on what's going on here in my yard, some of the things that are going well and some of the things that are still not going so well, and kind of my plan going forward with those. So the first question has been that you guys saw me putting down some seed, and I got some questions on whether that's too early or what was my reasoning for that. Well, actually things have accelerated quite a bit here and the soil temperatures have really risen. Let's actually go do a soil temp reading right now. I think the theme of this video is probably going to be that you need to pay attention to your weather conditions and your soil conditions and temperatures more than you do the calendar. And I know that kind of seems strange that typically things will happen at certain times during a year, but right now there's some other conditions going on that are kind of not really very typical for this time of year. So I put my seed down because we're already getting into the germination window, or at least soil temperatures have come up now above 55 degrees. So this means that I can get that seed down and I can try to get some germination happening. Now, of course, there is the risk that we're still going to get a freeze, and that definitely could happen yet. It's really kind of a gamble here on when you're going to apply that stuff and hope that you don't get a bunch of your grass come up, then have a hard freeze where it might freeze off. But you also can't wait too long sometimes because maybe right now is an ideal time for it and maybe it won't freeze again, and then you've got an extra few weeks here to get this thing going. It's definitely possible that we could get really warm temperatures by the end of May. Sometimes that happens here as well, so I would rather try to get this thing going. The risk of freezing is there, but I'd rather get this thing going if I can and give it a few more weeks of extra time. So as I said, it is definitely a gamble to do that, but right now with the way that I'm seeing these soil temperatures and the fact that we were supposed to get maybe 2 or 3 days of rain here, I'm hoping that I can get some of this seed germinated, have it actually starting to grow some roots, and then we'll see, cross our fingers, that no freezing temperatures happen or cause any major damage. It's just the way that it kind of is in spring seeding. So the next question was, what am I going to be doing with this multitude of weeds that is happening in the backyard? So I think that right now, before I get any germination happening, I'm going to try to do an application of Tenacity and Drive Accelerate. Drive is quinclorac, and Tenacity, you mix those two together as a tank mix, and I should have a pretty good control over what's going on here in the backyard, at least I hope so. The thing about that is that it's also safe for the fact that I have seed down and it has not germinated yet. Now, if all that seed had already germinated, I would not want to spray that early grass seed with anything, but it's still pretty much been laying just on the ground here and hasn't done anything yet, so I'm going to try that as well and try to get an application down before we get this rainfall and before the seed actually starts to germinate. So if you check the label here as well on the Drive, you can see that there are certain grasses where it is safe to do at the time of seeding and other ones that are not. So here on tall fescue, you can see that it says okay at the time of seeding. So I'm going to be doing an application of that, hopefully here today. If the wind comes down a little bit, then I'll be able to show you the results of that coming up as well. So another question has been, when should you start watering or doing irrigation if you're not receiving rainfall? And again, this comes back to a calendar thing where you would think that it's way early in the season, you shouldn't have to water, but actually around this time frame of year where the humidity is low and just coming out of dormancy, starting to green up, it's actually an important time to still consider watering and to consider that you may actually need to add some water. So I'm getting to that point here where I'm going to be starting my irrigation very soon. Now, it will depend on how much rain we get tonight, but it has been extremely dry. I'm going to show you a spot right now where it's already wilting. So just a couple days ago, these fringe areas along the driveway right here are ones that obviously there's still some cement here. You get extra heat off of here, and they typically dry out a lot quicker. So I always watch these areas, but this area right here, you can kind of see it's a little yellowed yet, but it has bounced back a lot. It was really wilted and it was looking like it needed some water. So I did hand water some of these sections. I don't have my irrigation on yet, but I will be starting that and I will be showing you that part. These look a lot better now. So you don't have to necessarily have your whole system on, or you don't have to necessarily go set up a whole sprinkler. You can just watch for spots that are starting to get really dry. But overall, I can tell the general cast of the yard is starting to get kind of a really dry look to it. I don't know how well this is going to show on camera, but you can start to see the grass. It doesn't really want to stand up too well, and it starts to get a little bit of a bluish hint to it. These sections along here, the leaves of the grass start to kind of curl. These are really getting dry, so I'm going to need some hand watering on this section as well. So if you look across the yard here, I just kind of scan things usually every morning, and I'm looking for just any sort of abnormalities that I'm seeing or things. If you look right there. So this circle right here, you're going to see a spot that's wilting, and that's just really called localized dry spot. You'll find just some spots here and there that maybe the root system isn't quite as established, or there's just something in that specific spot why it's dried out a little more than the others, but you can definitely tell that wilting look. It gets a darker kind of hue to it. It just looks really dried out. Let's get a close-up. Now when you're right up on it, you really don't notice it as much. That's why you kind of have to look from a distance, look across the yard and see, but definitely that's a spot that I can hand water to. So other than that, here my main enemy continues to be clover. I got quite a few spots in the front yard that are definitely going to have to be taken care of, as far as maybe some spot spraying, because this clover out here, it's typically one that I don't know why I deal with the most up there. I don't have a whole lot of other weeds going on up there or any other issues really going on up there, except for just some dry soil. So according to the label here, you want to add half of your water into your spray tank. So make sure you have all your gear on here as well to protect yourself. Half of the water goes into the spray tank, and after that I added my tenacity product into here with this little teaspoon thing to convert it down to just applying over 1,000 square feet. Doesn't end up being much product. They do give you this little syringe here to kind of help with that, but if you want to change any of the rates here, these are kind of preset to a certain rate at 1 gallon, a certain rate at 2 gallons of water, so you kind of have to adjust there if you want to do a different rate. So then after that I put in my drive, and that on the label said 1.45 ounces per 1,000 square feet. So obviously you're going to multiply that by 4 for the 4,000 square feet that I'm going to be spraying. And so I put that product in. Then the label says to shake everything up before you add your MSO. So MSO is just going to help those things to stick to the leaf and hopefully coat it better. So I went with a rate there of 0.55 ounces. So put the MSO in and then put the cap back on, shake everything up, and make sure that everything is mixed together really well. Then put the rest of your water in your sprayer and you're ready to spray. Those are just a couple of the questions that I've been seeing recently. I have a big spring seeding project coming up that I just finished seeding. I'm going to be excited to see how that goes and excited to share that with you as well. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.